principal website is www.Dr. Truth Reports, DRRINA truthreports.com. Now, in marketing, there is a rule that you must never break, they tell me, that you must never have two consonants following one another in two separate words, as in, for instance, Dr. Rima. We break that rule. There are a lot of rules that we break. We break the rules that don't make sense. We break the rules that keep us from knowing what's real. We break the rules that keep us from saying what needs to be said. Like, for instance, allopathic medicine is part of the system that is wounding and killing us. And that has to stop. And there are wonderful replacements for it, wonderful things that preceded it and were smashed flat through the commercial and social engineering interests of people who don't like you. They don't like your children. They don't like the fact that you're what they call a useless eater, which means you're taking up space on the planet and consuming what they consider to be their natural resources. Well, we see it a little bit differently. As the medical director of the Natural Solutions Foundation and as a physician who has practiced drug-free medicine and psychiatry for almost 50 years. Yes, Virginia, there is drug-free medicine and it works very well. Yes, Virginia, there is also drug-free psychiatry. And unlike allopathic, excuse me, conventional psychiatry, it actually does work well. So having practiced those arts for all that time, I've become keenly aware that nutrition is essential to health. But the food that we get, of course, doesn't provide nutrition unless we work for that access to good food. That the last thing you want to do if you're looking for health is seek out an allopathic physician who's practicing drug-based medicine, unless, of course, you have an emergency and you're unconscious and the ambulance takes you to a hospital. Then you got to get well as quickly as you can and get the hell out of there. And I've also come to realize the political side to all of that and the importance to the people who want to be in charge of you and your life and your death of not telling you the truth. That's why these are the Dr. Rima Truth Reports. If you go to www.drrimatruthreports.com and you sign up, put your email address in, and you go down the right-hand column and look for our breaking news, our latest blogs, you will see there an ebook by the president of the Natural Solutions Foundation, Major General Albert N. Stubblebine III, who is not only the president, he's also my husband. I suppose in some ways he had no choice but to become the president of the Natural Solutions Foundation. At any rate, he's written a book that I would like it very much if you would read, and if you would share with everyone you think might possibly be interested, because in it, he reveals, I believe for the first time, that Tylenol, acetaminophen, paracetamol, different names for it, is actually a mind control drug that separates us from our ability to feel empathy, just as fluoride separates us from our ability to feel empathy for ourselves. It makes us apathetic. And fluoride and acetaminophen are synergistic. The acetaminophen makes the fluoride more effective because it delays its excretion. And that's bad enough. But when you look into cui bono, who benefits, suddenly you find that it's the same despicable cast of characters that usually benefit, and indeed the ones who benefit most by making allopathic medicine the dangerous tool that it is. It's a horrifying read, and I urge you to commit the time to read it and to share it, because like nothing else, this may convince you that it's time to get active. It's time to create real pushback, because we're talking about the intentional poisoning of your children. After all, Tylenol is used as a safe alternative to aspirin to poison your children. Quite strong words. I urge you to read that ebook. We've made it available free so that no one can say, well, I would have read it, but I didn't want to spend the money for it. It's free. This is information you and everyone around you needs. It's groundbreaking. That's the bad news. The good news is that none of us needs a pharmaceutical in our life 99.99% of the time. And today, I have two friends and proponents of an art and a science that puts the power of health and healing exactly where it belongs, and that is in your hands. Not a doctor's hands, not a bureaucrat's hands, not the hands of anyone else, but your hands. Specifically, puts your health very often in your hands after you sprinkle a few drops of these magic elixirs and inhale deeply, touching every cell and every system in your body. Well, if that sounds too good to be true, then you're going to be truly enthralled by what we're going to be talking about today. Our guests today, that's a hard thing to say clearly. Our guests today are Dick and Nancy Weber of the Lightwing Center. Nancy and I have known each other since approximately 1970, when we were respectively a nurse, that would be Nancy, and a lowly, lower than slug resident in psychiatry, that would be me, at Lincoln Hospital in the South Bronx of the United States. It was South Bronx of New York in the United States. It was a wild and crazy ride, and we appreciated each other as sane human beings at that time. And over time, my appreciation for Nancy and my appreciation for Dick, her deeply involved partner in life, and my appreciation and my understanding of how profound their work is has done nothing but increase. And so I thought it would be wonderful to share with you some of their wisdom, their knowledge, and their joy. They have an immense amount of joy in being able to bring about health and healing with magical molecules called essential oils. Dick and Nancy, welcome to the Dr. Rima Truth Reports.
Thank you for having us, and welcome to you, Dr. Rima.
Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you, Dr. Rima. Can I, when we get together, you and I talk, there are things you said in the beginning too, and then you mentioned the old Lincoln Hospital. I was the head nurse, and I had the privilege of denying drugs to be used when I felt didn't need it. And this was all 10-day acute psychosis episodes only. So this was the most troubled of the troubled. And we broke through, and we had magic. We brought in nutrition first, color. The walls had to be soothing colors. Everything had to be very soothing. We brought in gestalt, psychodrama, and listening. Even to the hallucinations, listening. And we brought in intuition. And it was magic. And it helped me understand that term that I learned in 1961 from my first nursing teacher, holistic, what it really meant. There are fundamental principles to all of life, and we don't use it. Our bodies, our minds go out of sync. So I think part of it is bringing, not so much because of the United States and the way they approach essential oils and what category it falls under. We like to call it above the wellness line, and we like to call it balancing all the systems, because they can go out so easily. We're getting a little feedback
Yeah,
here.
I don't know if that's, Drew, I don't know if you could hear that, but it sounds like Donald Duck is helping us.
Drew, can you do something about the feedback? Drew may have put us on automatic pilot.
I think
We'll
Okay.
see what happens.
So we'll see.
All right.
Now it's gone.
right. One of the best things that's happened recently in healthcare and essential oils is that Health Canada, who has the responsibility for keeping a population well at low cost, has begun to use our oils and to certify them as therapeutic. We now are up to 44 oils. We're up to 78 oils and oil blends by the end of the year.
I'm going to stop you. You say our oils. Now that implies that you and Nancy have a vat in your basement where you're stirring things around, and I think that's not true. So could you talk about our oils a little? Because they're also our oils. They're also the Natural Solutions Foundation's oils. And I think people need to know how that works and how they could become their oils. Unless you do have a vat and you brew up this stuff.
He's like one, actually.
I actually have a cauldron. You guys would relate to cauldrons, I'm sure.
Not this lifetime.
The
I don't even cook in this lifetime anymore.
bubble,
You do.
toiling trouble.
So I find,
Wait. What oils are we talking about? Whose oils?
We're talking specifically about oils that are manufactured throughout the world, but pervaded by Young Living.
only.
Only, we believe the Young Living oils have a level of purity, a level of integrity, a level of authenticity that can't be matched in this world.
Well, it could if everybody wanted to do what they do, but they don't.
Isn't being matched.
It isn't.
Isn't being matched.
Yes, we do not always have joy together with some of us. So we being everyone who takes these oils into their lives, and this is a typical one, and actually it's called Joy, if anybody can see it. And it has pure rose oil. It's a blend. Gary Young, you know my history a little bit, and I don't know if you know Gary's history a little bit. And it's a fascinating one, partly in this sense, the thing that drove everything was his need to improve his life. And thank God he grew up on a farm, dirt poor. However, he's a farmer.
Let me
So
say,
we have farms.
Gary Young is the founder and prime mover in Young Living Oils. He's also a personal friend and a mentor and a hero.
And a discoverer of essential oils. I think he to date discovered 32 of them. So he looked around the world to see how does he do this? Because originally the grade of oil he wanted to bring back was being done only in France and Germany primarily. Throughout the world, it wasn't happening. It was very synthetic and diluted. And so he decided the way to do it was to farm and to create a network market so that would be the distribution between people, like when we had villages and when we have tribes. We tell each other, we help each other, we're neighbors, we're friends, we're family, we're the physicians, the nurses, or any other profession who wants to do something thousands and thousands of years to sit with somebody and make shamans do it, and to put it back into the hands of everybody. Now, how do you do that? Well, he does it primarily through farms, through something called seed to seal. Those farms are pure. We all know what's happened. Most countries now know what Monsanto has done. And unfortunately, in the US, we have a big push-pull. Gary Young took 1/4 acre of farm land and destroyed it with Roundup. He then took a blend he made called Digize and mixed it with neem oil and restored fully all the soil to perfection. He's a soil expert. None of his soil is sprayed with anything other than either the runoff of the oil distillation process or the oils that, while they are pure and authentic, they're not at the grade that he would put out for everybody to use. And that's what all the plants are sprayed with. When he had an infestation in one, he hired the best crystal guy he could find to start walking the land and putting in, I think, 6 feet apart, 3 feet down, crystals. No more infestation. He refuses to use anything except what this planet can contribute to sustain the planet. And so it is a distribution of people who care, people who share, people who feel a moral obligation to assist each other.
You left people hanging because you're assuming because Rima knows your story and perhaps knows Gary's background that everyone else does. I think it might be wise for you to just talk a little bit about how Gary got to be involved in the oils, right? His life prior to the oils.
Oh, that one.
Yes, and then how you became involved in the oils. So
A little background, yeah, thank you, love. A little background helps with a quick, broad stroke. He grew up in a house with no electricity, no running water, 7 people, 5 kids, 2 parents. He left early and he homesteaded. And I think it was about age 21, a tree fell on him. They thought he died. He was in a coma. He stayed in a coma several months. He stayed in a rehab institute. I don't know how many years. He was a paraplegic. He read the Bible again and again to a blind man, if I'm not mistaken. There is this book. In fact, I'm sending it to you, Rima. We are sending it.
Thank you. Thank you.
It is the true story with photos, etc., of the whole history, because he's the #1 in the world. Anyhow.
For anyone who's involved in this, in healing it all, and is interested in the history of young living and the distillation and essential oils in this country, this book is available.
Worldwide.
This book is available at Life Science Publishing.
Okay, so he got himself eventually, after 3 suicide attempts, he fasted for 254 days and stood up. Having read all the things that I find fascinating that he read in the Bible, he started realizing they were medical tracts. They were somebody who learned that hyssop, if you take the hyssop leaves and make a wreath or take something out of it and kind of tap it, you breathe it in. And so that was Passover, the hyssop. It was so antimicrobial that those people were passed over and didn't get the plague. So he started looking at all that. And he found that in France they were doing the work. And he got himself there after doing some things holistically, colonics and other things. Well, apparently the essential oils made a huge difference. It was only medical doctors who were doing this. And he thought, what about the people who can't afford to get to France? What about the people who can't afford anything? How am I going to help them? I want everybody to benefit, not just me, not just you, and not just the people in my country or your country, the people who are living on shacks and living on the earth. Everybody needs to have it because it grows everywhere. So why can't we do this? And so today's world, it is the worldwide largest and the one reason everyone knows of aromatherapy. He spread the word throughout the world.
He is Gary.
Gary Young. My story is simple. I had two massive injuries, 19 and 25. The second one left me with a left leg that was dying. And by all medical testing, years later, there was no regeneration. They gave me a body brain.
Excuse me, we're getting some extraneous sounds. I hope that it's because Ralph is back, but maybe it's not. But it made it very difficult to hear you. So you said you had two accidents, one at 19, one at 25, and
They weren't really accidents. They were injuries inflicted. The second one, I was 5 months pregnant. So I had I had emergency surgeries to restore certain function in my body, only I'm now missing from lumbar 3, everything on the left side. There's nothing there. And the sciatic root was considered dying and would be dead in a few more years. And that's what I was left with, like 3-4 years later. They retested everything. I decided to walk away at that point and remembered what my teacher told me. Now, I had 33 hospitalizations, 3 near deaths, yada, yada. I pulled the plug. I signed refused permission to treat. I read the PDR, the physician's desk reference, and I went, oh my God, it cost me my heart.
wait a minute, we're still getting extraneous. Ralph, are you back? Or is that Drew?
I think I should have eaten. I think it might be my stomach, Ralph.
Could be. Well, then stop that, Ralph. Stop that.
Right, just growling inside him.
Go ahead, Nancy.
And so I proceeded to self-teach myself. And I have to say, what I learned in nursing partly was fine. And one of the premises they taught me is drugs and surgery will last in line. Never use them first. So I never.
What school did you go to?
Brooklyn College. Yay!
Really? How very, very unusual. How very unusual.
They want me to look at everything you put in your mouth. If it goes in your mouth, it's going to the mucous membranes, the delivery system. They used the word holistic. And they had us do family trees for nutrition and genetics. They were very, very good. I learned real nutrition back then.
Wow.
So when I worked in a hospital, I was in shock. When I saw what they fed and when I was a patient, I went, no, you can't serve me that.
Wow.
So I walked away.
I have to interject something. At roughly the same time, I was in medical school. And what I learned was that what you ate didn't matter, that the composition of food was irrelevant, that vitamins and minerals were supplemented only by people with psychiatric problems because they were nuts. Everybody knew that you got everything you needed from whatever it was that was in food. If you got anything in your mouth, that was sufficient. And in the more than adequate training that we got in biochemistry, it wasn't until about maybe 4 or 5 months into the course, it was a year-long course in biochemistry, taught to us by an MD, PhD, a very brilliant man named Ray K. Brown. He was an observer of humanity. And when Dr. Brown would notice that in the hot, stuffy, dark lecture hall, there were too many of us asleep,
Yep.
He would say something to relate biochemistry to medicine. And he would talk about some physiological part of it. And somewhere around 4 to 5 months into the year, I realized that what he was talking about when he would give us a clinical tidbit to wake us up was nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to figure that out through my many comatose hours in the lecture hall. Very interesting. So your nursing school was teaching you reality, and my medical school was preparing me to be completely separated from that reality.
My school warned us about doctors. When they had a surgeon give a talk and he walked out, she said, now listen, the king just spoke. And so let me explain to you something. His attitude is, when in doubt, cut it out. She said, that's last in line forever. She said, if they medevac you somewhere, then maybe you need surgery. If
Wow.
bone, maybe you need somebody to help the bone, but it's not going to knit it. They talked common sense about it for me. I loved it.
My mother warned me about surgeons, but her warning was a little different. Go ahead.
Mine too. I've been listening to everything. But one of our teachers was a frontline war nurse. And so she did a lot of procedures. And she was no nonsense about how ridiculous some things were and that how they didn't work. She was very, very clear. And so many of them taught me so well that when I needed the help and I was desperate because the last thing I wanted was to live in a wheelchair, I walked away from everything. I did Master Cleanse, Stanley Burroughs. I took Dr. Cherian, who was a fabulous doctor from India, homeopathic. I did anything I could. I formed a food co-op to get organic food, which was cheaper than going to the store for the crap food. And it was a lifesaver. My kids would open a fridge and they could eat anything they wanted. I didn't care. Seaweed, fruit, veggies. It didn't matter.
It's all about where the funding comes from. I studied physics and engineering.
Yep.
And in physics, you get a much broader range. It's much more a Catholic small c, much more overviewy thing of how the world works. Engineers are made to be tools, plugins, right?
Right.
So nurses,
Like doctors.
like
Right.
doctors, exactly.
Right, exactly.
Nurses have a broader view because they're there to help people. Their heart is in the right place, and their education was different because they weren't.
There was no
followed by
funding.
pharmaceuticals. Yeah.
There's no funding of nursing schools.
Right.
So
I don't know if it's the same now as doctors are being replaced by other specialists, but you got yourself healthy like Gary Young got himself healthy.
Right. I did and I didn't. I was paralyzed quite a few times in between until I came into 2003 when I joined Young Living.
And what happened?
I went for a 3-day training on Raindrop with Gary Young, and there were 600 people. There were 300 massage tables. And it was amazing because there was diffusion everywhere of oregano and thyme and cypress and wintergreen and basil and peppermint. I've never been in a place like that before. This was my first real exposure to concentrated essential oil diffusion. I had one brief exposure that told me, wow. So when I got there and I'm listening and I'm seeing his slides on chemistry, it pulled me back to why I didn't like chemistry in nursing school, because it was all about synthetics. And for me, common sense said, why would I wear polyester? Why would I eat synthetics? Why would I put them in my body? It doesn't make sense to me. So I didn't always have answers. I just knew what felt right and what didn't feel right for me. So when I was exposed to this, I had the very uncommon response in that my body did not go into spasm any longer. So I had central nervous system damage, and I had large muscle contractions that could last for anywhere from minutes to hours, where you can just hit it, it would be a rock. And nothing would let it go until I started doing the Raindrop, and it was almost instantaneous.
Tell people what the Raindrop is.
It is a layering of essential oils over the reflex points on your feet, for spinal reflex points. We layer different oils on. We use something called roll and release a lot of times. So roll and release means I take the pads, I have oils first, and I activate them by picking them up clockwise a few times. I go to the foot. I have to pick up my hand to do that, not the foot. And I will apply them by walking up the spinal reflex point. And then the brain would be on top, like the big toe, and I'd make sure to cover that. And then I would take the next oil and I would do both feet. Then I would take the same oils, most of the same oils, and apply them over the spine, and very, very lightly. Everything is done light as a feather. Everything is done gently. And the reason we do that is there is no need to push oils. They're such tiny molecules that it's simple for them to get through the skin. It is simple, within 1 to 2 minutes, they're in the bloodstream. So by layering them, we've done this for everything and anything. I don't care what it is. And I've used other oils too. There's a kit called the Raindrop kit. However, I like to mix and match and use others. I've got oils I love. When Dick does things like a raindrop for me, and we call it splash the oils on when we're tired, you know. And one of my favorites is an oil called rosemary, and I wish I could have you smell it right now. Whenever I'm sinuses stuffed, hotel rooms, anything like that, and I asked Dick, do you think I should do it now? And he said, no. Silly. I take a Q-tip, and I'll put a drop on each Q-tip and stick it right in my nose, but I also use a neti pot with rosemary. And 1 drop of rosemary to 2 is sufficient. So I had somebody here who said, oh, nothing ever takes it. I use neti pot, I use everything. Used 1 drop of rosemary in water. She was pouring out all hardened matter, and it was beautiful.
Okay, so the Raindrop is an oil application technique, usually using the same sequences of oils. But if you have other challenges, spiritual or physical, right, sometimes you change the oils that you use.
If you're fatigued.
The best thing is that we infiltrating into the public consciousness of things like oregano is good as an antibacterial agent, because Purdue uses it with their chickens, right? I can't make that claim, but Purdue uses it with their chickens.
World Health Organization stated by 2020, no use of antibiotics will be effective.
They published a statement about 8 or 9 months ago that we disseminated through our newsletter, which you'll get if you put your email into the little slot that's available at Dr. Rima Truth Reports. And also you might want to check out opensourcetruth.com, where powerful, powerful information is brought forward, including what I'm about to say. The World Health Organization said we are approaching an antibiotic Armageddon, and we will lose all antibiotics. Once again, they said infectious disease will become the disaster that it was before antibiotics. Well, that's not quite true, for reasons that you're going to talk about, and if I may insert, for reasons of a nutrient called nanosilver 10 parts per million, which we're not allowed to say is an antibiotic. It's a nutrient, but we are allowed to tell you that it does support the immune system so spectacularly that antibiotics and their silly sisters, vaccines, are completely irrelevant. But there are other strategies. Oh, you can get that at www.nsfmarketplace.com. But there are other strategies for boosting the immune system, and Purdue chicken farmers have figured that out.
Right.
And there is more beyond Purdue. Let's start with the specific topic then of immune support and fending off organism infections. Let's talk about that, and let's talk about the most commonly used oils for this purpose. And before you do that, may I give you a website that you want, and that is NSF, that stands for Natural Solutions Foundation, NSF nsfoils.com. nsfoils.com is a wonderful place where you can get the things that we're talking about, and they are, in fact, genuine young living oils. It's also wonderful because when you do that, you're not only putting your health in your hands, you're putting the resources in our hands to protect your health freedom to make those choices. So nsfoils.com. Nancy, you were about to say.
I love you so. I love you.
I'm looking at our video. I said,
This is a good point to interrupt. Hello, Ralph Usatola here. I've been listening to you. Three of my favorite people in the world, Music and Nancy. I've been watching you from Control Central here. I want to thank my son Drew for starting the live stream today because I was on the road coming back from a family funeral, and I'm really happy to be here and to listen to you all. And I may just pop in somewhere along the line, but this has been a really enlightening discussion so far. The essences. What is it? The essential truth about essential oils. That's the title of our program, by the way. Essential truth.
I want to let everybody know that Ralph is the one of the trustees of the Natural Solutions Foundation and a true hero in my estimation, a true freedom fighter. And he is also skilled and experienced in the use of essential oils. So we are an oily bunch. Dick and Nancy and Ralph and General Bert and I and Ralph's wife, Kathy. These are things that we have found to be powerful in our lives. And by the way, the concept was first introduced to me by the trainer of the Jets, the New York Jets, or was it the Giants? The New York Giants, I'm sorry, the New York Giants. A guy came to us in our medical practice and said, I have injured athletes who need neurobiofeedback, including, for instance, Boomer Esiason. But most of the time, I'm able to give them everything they need with massage, ice, and essential oils. I said, what's an essential oil? He said, aromatherapy. I said, as I said, what is that? That was where I learned that there was a way to influence the body, the spirit, the mind, the emotions with these tiny, tiny little powerful molecules. Do go on.
Okay. Foremost,
Yes.
there are certain oils I'm never without. And frankincense carteri and Boswellia sacra, which is sacred frankincense, are two of the essential oils I always carry around. One of the things in the US we have learned is to state what chemical compounds are important. And they're not the only ones because it's all synergy. The chemical compounds are synergistic. In one essential oil, you may have, nobody knows, 300 to 200 different chemical compounds. They don't know all of them yet. And they have to fall into a particular percentile. So there's one line, and somebody once said to me, you are the queen of. So I don't have the oil in front of me because I'm diffusing it. I have the fruit and veggie wash from this huge line called Thieves. When I first found out about it, and I said, Thieves? What? And then they said, you're going to love it. And I said, I'm not quite sure. Since part of my job has been to work with law enforcement in the capacity about crimes, real crimes, not taking away rights crimes.
Hey, I love my Thieves fluoride-free toothpaste, folks. I really do.
Exactly. So for me, keeping up the immune system, establishing a continuing to establish a normal pathogen count. Well, we all have these travelers with us and not allowing them to proliferate past a certain.
Some are friendly travelers.
Some
are necessary travelers.
Thieves seems to be one of the biggest keys for anybody and everyone. And it is cinnamon bark oil, clove oil, eucalyptus radiata, lemon, and rosemary. And what it was established from was looking back in the books in France and Marseille, and during the bubonic plague, Gary did research on it and found that 4 aromatic spice traders were captured, taking the gold off the bodies, taking everything off, and survived. And he wanted to know how you could do that. And so the judge, when they came forward, said, "We won't torture you. We'll kill you quickly if you tell us the truth." And it was, isn't that sweet? I'm telling you, they were just, okay.
All heart, all heart.
All right, thank you. And so, I keep that with visions are going on. So Thieves is the modern day, for modern things, version of what those aromatic spice traders used. And those 5 synergistically have been tested clinically. They are amazing. We put them on.
Say them again, Nancy.
Thieves oil, 5 different oils in a blend that is not a blend. They call it a blend, but it's true synergy. They work together and it smells beautiful. We have household cleaner, we have the essential oil, we have the toothpaste, we have the mouthwash, we've got the cough drops that contain it. That's an OTC in the US, over the counter. We have the veggie and fruits. We have a whole bunch of things because it is such a powerful thing. When we think this way about immune system, I think of it for pets, children, families, anybody, elderly, doesn't matter who. We diffuse it in the home. We clean with its household cleaner. We use the wash because it's a natural way of cleaning the air and keeping it boosted high so that our bodies don't have to work so hard. Use Thieves oil with a kid in a special needs school where his teacher used something we call another blend, Peace and Calming, which all the other children, instead of being off the wall, were quiet. He stayed off the wall. So she decided to put Thieves on the soles of his feet, and she knew him about 3 or 4 years. 5 minutes went by, he sat quietly. First time ever. And she looked and she spoke to me. She said, "I wouldn't have believed it if you hadn't said that when you keep the pathogen count back to normal, behavior changes." I said, "Well, of course."
Not only that, but we know through some very, very interesting and I think well done studies that when autistic people are given good probiotics, and they're also given the prebiotics, the nourishment factors to keep the probiotics alive in their GI tract, when the good bacteria are established in the gut, behavior changes like that in a positive direction. So what you're suggesting here is that by putting Thieves on the skin, in the air, in the environment of the child, and therefore into the body of the child, and one has to wonder whether a good deal of the impact isn't coming from the frequency of the molecules, not the molecules themselves, but that's another discussion for another show. When you introduce this, one has to wonder whether or not you're controlling the pathogen count the same way you would be if you're brushing your teeth with Thieves, or you're washing your hands with soap that has Thieves in it, or cleaning your socks in the laundry machine and the washing machine. So this is a very, very suggestive piece of information. But the answer to my question then is that your first line of defense, and you can use any oil, and you know oils very, very well. Your first line of defense in general is Thieves.
It's the line of Thieves, and it's frankincense. It's all of it. I carry Thieves spray, Thieves waterless hand cleaner. We have Thieves foaming soap in our bathrooms. We use essential oils that are real throughout the home. We diffused thieves in the winter in every room. We had a mold condition, and if you look up Dr. Ed Close, Close, he is a PhD, and he is an international expert on toxic mold. He is a member of Young Living. He is a friend, and he has done laboratory studies. In 12 to 20 minutes, thieves oil kills black mold.
Wow, Stachybotrys.
Jackie.
Yes.
Wow. Can you arrange an introduction so we can have Dr. Ed Crows, of whom I've heard, on the show?
You had Ed on your show about a year and a half ago talking about a book he wrote on quantum mechanics.
Right.
Right. It was one of those times when we were being interfered with by some other outside force, right? And he
Yes, but we weren't talking about his work in terms of toxic mold. It was mentioned lightly.
Yes.
Right. Now you want him back and go in depth. He's wonderful at that.
Yes.
So the thieves line, I find, if people have, I don't know what, but if they're never feeling quite okay and everyone's stressed, I would turn to all the thieves products because it's just a change over things you're used to. Don't use fluoride in toothpaste. Natural toothpaste is not natural, at least in the US. We know that. I use Thieves toothpaste, and I have to tell you, I had a miracle in 6 months. Instead of, I wasn't going to do anything anyhow, no matter what anybody told me, what I needed. But in 6 months, I didn't need anything.
Nancy had fairly severe periodontal infection, right?
Which came.
She had 5, 6, and 7 pockets.
I've had it since I was probably 25 when I lay dying. My infection was throughout my body to my brain. And
so she switched her oral care
and I'm
products.
sure it was still the same thing many years later.
Switched her oral care products, and within 6 months, she went back to the dentist, and he said, "I don't see any periodontal disease."
He didn't see anything. He didn't say anything, and I said, "What about the pockets?" He said, "What pockets?" I said, "Well, look in the chart. I have number 5s." He said, "Well, you don't now." And I said,
"Oh yeah, those pockets."
Yeah. I mean, he couldn't earn money on it, so why should I say a word? I never went back to him.
So now I have heard people say, isn't it dangerous to use thieves almost exclusively to kill bacteria and fungus and other and viruses? Because won't they develop a resistance? I mean, triclosan, some of these chlorinated hydrocarbons that we use, right, to kill things.
And the answer?
The answer is it's so multifaceted, because you know better than most how antibiotics work. They target one or two things, either the cell wall, right, or they disrupt the DNA. These 5 oils attack so many vectors that it's unlikely, since there are never any survivors, right, that there's some genetic mutation that would cause the bacteria to become resistant.
It's
right?
also the speed at which it can do it and the frequency, because normally bacteria can leave information in the bloodstream for future bacteria. They can go dormant, they can mutate, etc. And they're not really given a chance to because of the speed of delivery. That's part of it.
So I mean, it would be conceivable
Olfactory.
that if you cultured these things carefully with very low dosage of thieves, that there might be some strains that developed resistance.
Right.
We don't see any indication. Now, this has been used for 25 years. Every that thieves story is maybe apocryphal, but it's recurring. Every time there's a plague, somebody comes up with some way where herbs or herb derivatives or oils are protective, right? And usually it's for various purposes. So I'm protected. I can then rob this stuff. I can just take the stuff that wasn't mine, right? But it's not once. The thieves' vinegar, that story has been told 3 or 4 times throughout plague eras.
I wonder if people know that the children's song, "Ring Around the Rosy, a pocket full of posy, ashes, ashes, all fall down," is actually about exactly the same thing. As people had in their pockets the posy that was intended to keep them from developing the plague. And when it didn't work, oops, ashes, ashes, we all fall down. So it's part of our lore. And the wisdom part of the lore is that there is something that works. The lack of wisdom part of our lore is, well, if it didn't come out of a pharmaceutical company, then it doesn't matter.
It's the one part that I really enjoy, so many different, when you say the favorite ones and what do we go to, we always carry everything Thieves with us. We travel a lot in the airplane. However, in a plane, for instance, we don't use Thieves because some people, here's the fun part I find. You're somewhere, I don't care where. I knew somebody who I used Thieves in front of originally, and he went, "Oh my God, I hate it." And I went, "No, you don't." And he goes, "What do you mean? No, I don't." "Yes, I do. I can't stand the smell." I said, "Your pathogens inside can't stand the smell because they're being attacked immediately. And they're screaming and they're going to war. And you think it's you." So, and he looked at me like, "Really? Okay, nice." I said, "So try this version instead. You have a sugar craving. Who has the sugar craving? Do you really have it? Because you don't really need it. It's not even good for you. But there are some things inside you who can't survive without it. So who are you feeding?" And it's the same thing. The essential oils go and look inside every single cell, determine if a cell is healthily alive, filled with oxygen, filled with everything it needs to function. And if it doesn't, it first has to clean. So Thieves is tremendous at this. There are others I find that are also tremendous. Oregano and thyme together. I put them in capsules and I take them.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Why do you take oregano and thyme together? Other than if you were sprinkling it on your food as an herb, it would be both delicious and very, very, very wholesome. But why do you specifically take those two oils in a capsule?
He wants to remain a spring chicken.
Okay.
That's one way to put it.
That was good, Dick.
Synergistically, they have so many different compounds, and together they make a very unique ability to take care of many, many things in many cells that don't belong.
Such as?
Viruses.
Sounds logical to me.
Viruses, bacteria, primarily. See, each one has
fungi.
Fungi.
Fungi, yes.
Right.
I am a fun guy, you're right.
So if I look, for instance, there is reference material in my home.
Put your book up, lady.
This is in my home.
Show the
right?
ladies, show the people the book.
So this is a essential oil reference material. I have a library in my home that I go to all the time and look up things, and I look at the research.
If that wasn't enough, there's a big one.
You're getting all of them.
These are all coming to you.
Excellent. Excellent.
So you can tell people, because you're going to figure it out faster than I ever did. Really?
No. I'm a doctor. You know, you have to be patient with me. I have had a very, very poor education.
We're now leaning on the historical documents, right?
Yes.
Thousands of years of wisdom have been distilled, condensed into these books.
So when I look up, for instance, they have a key constituents, and they'll say carvacrol, very high, and I go, so what's carvacrol? So I have to look that up because I don't really know. As a compound, what is it? It's very high in oregano. Do you know?
What do you mean, do I know? Yes, I know.
What's the compound? What does it do? He's so... I love him.
I could be wrong, but I believe carbacol is a phenol with antibacterial properties.
Okay, that's why. And that's oregano. So that's the highest percentile of all the compounds that they see in it.
But in any case,
And then I go to time.
there's reference material that people can refer to when and if they have some problem in their life, right? That's why I think if anybody's going to self-administer, they should have reference material.
Well, now, you're doing preventive things for yourself, for instance, with garlic and oregano, yes? And I gather that it has some age retardant qualities, thus the spring chicken remark, which was very funny. It was deliciously funny, one might say. But what about things like common things that plague people, like back pain and asthma, and vaccine injury related things, chronic fatigue, and so on? As people come to you and say, I've tried everything, can you help me? Where do you go to help these people when you go into your reference, and what do you find? What are the patterns that you're seeing?
Okay. The first and foremost, whether it's people and whatever is going on with them, I believe in a different approach, perhaps. And we just lost your beautiful face.
No, you didn't. This is winter. I'm in winter in Chile, and I'm bending down under my desk to turn on my space heater, and that would be pretty weird to look at. So do continue.
Okay.
So while Dr. Rima is doing that, I'm going to take an opportunity to remind everyone that you are listening to the live stream of the Dr. Rima Truth Reports. Our main website is www.drrimatruthreports.com. And folks, those of you who've been following with us, the issue of gold reached $1,375 today. It's about $1,364 now. If you're interested in gold, naturalsolutionsgold.com. You need to learn more, and that's the place to go, naturalsolutionsgold.com. And Dr. Rima, our advertisement, I guess, for Natural Solutions Gold is done. You're back. Nancy's there. And I'm going to be quiet again.
But I also want to tell you, to remind you that NSF oils is, in fact, your source for these spectacular oils that Dick and Nancy and Ralph and General Bert and I and Kathy have been using and profiting in terms of our health and our safety, because they're non-toxic. Think about that. How many drugs that can impact the body support the enzyme systems of the body and bring it health and strength instead of degrading the enzyme systems? The answer is zero. And these oils are a very different approach. Nancy was just about to tell us about her different approach to a person. Can't be called a client because Nancy is not a physician. They can be called, can't be called a patient because Nancy is not a physician. So Nancy doesn't have patients, she has clients. Ralph might have a client. Dick has clients, he has suppliants. I, on the other hand, am licensed to have patients. But would you rather go to somebody with a license to kill you or somebody with the knowledge to help you, like somebody who's using essential oils? It's really quite an interesting question. What were you about to say?
I was just about to say, by
we're
clarification,
communicants.
we treat people that we talk to as communicants. Under our umbrella as ministers. And we communicate a truth that we feel is more special than commercial. It's a soul to soul, heart to heart, spirit to spirit communion. So we're communicants, and when someone comes and asks us for advice or counsel, we communicate with them.
And so this is both an accurate description, and it's also a legal protection.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, for many years, I start with, I cannot treat you, I cannot diagnose. I am a nurse. I am a medical intuitive. I am a psychic. I truly believe that all things that come back into balance are about the mind, body, spirit being one. So there is an approach that is got to be holistic, and at the same time, depending upon circumstances, people need to understand the very, very different approach from masking symptoms to reduce the pain in the moment to truly alleviating the stressors that are.
And moving to health and wellness as opposed to symptom-free state. Now, I want to
Dr.
stop you
Rima,
there.
Dr. Rima, this is, of course, all based upon essentially what are called traditional uses.
Right.
These have been traditional uses for essential oils for literally millennia. And this is why foods, which is what essential oils are, they're a type of food, are deemed safe when used as directed. There's no need for the government to be concerned about the foods that you use. And of course, we all know that foods are really important, despite what you were not taught back in medical school, as you were speaking about earlier in the program. We all know that, as the song says, you are what you eat, and the essence of the plant is the essential oil. The essence that we've been working with, CBDs, cannabidiol, is the essence, and it's the essence that has this extraordinary potency.
Well, what
what I want to do is emphasize the fact that people, in my experience as a physician practicing drug-free medicine, looking at things deeply holistically, in my experience, people don't come for holistic complaints. They don't say my entire being is out of balance. They say my back hurts, or I have cancer, or I've been given a diagnosis of osteoarthritis, and
I get that fine.
what?
I get that all the time.
And that's the point that I wanted to make, that people come for a symptom complex. If they wish to become healthy, they need to move out of pain, out of discomfort, but past the symptom complex into whole well-being. And that's where people who use things like oil and nutrients and sound and so on have a huge superiority in what they can do and what they can offer. But the public comes for the pain.
Usually. That is the majority, whether it's emotional or physical or both.
Yes.
And usually they're intertwined. So my approach has always been to, if they're not in 7+ pain or greater, then my task first is to educate. And so I give them a basic education on how a body works and how many stresses can happen. And so people who've been in therapy for years and have the same repeat patterns, people who've had chronic illnesses, to me, it doesn't matter which. It is all this damage to the pathways, to the DNA, to the, and so much of it could be the makeup they wear, the shampoo they use, the soaps they use, what they're breathing in, what they're eating, and poor epigenetics and genetics and in utero experiences and what their parents had while they were pregnant, et cetera, and what kind of life you led. Add it all together. So for me, there's no one way other than to help them understand that first. If I can get them to fully get, it becomes the straw that breaks the camel's back, so to speak. It is the overwhelming amount of stressors that create all these rising to the symptoms. And one of my favorite things is to say to them, long after symptoms go, you still have to clean and repair everything, because I want you to tell me something. They go, what? Can you tell me how the cells in your Isles of Langerhorn are working? And they look at me and they go, no. I go, so how do you know? There is no test to tell you that. There is no test to tell you everything around. It's impossible, because 10 minutes later, something's happened and your whole chemistry has changed on a dime when you're upset, angry, joyful. It's a totally different chemical cascade. So how can you tell me that? I'm telling you that by the time anything that we call symptoms occur, unless it's an accident or a massive injury, it's taken a long time to show. It means lots has been going beneath the surface. It's like the dirt in the water. You don't get to see that right away. You get to see it when the coral's dying, when the algae's dying. You don't get to see that right away. And then you go, oh my God, well, body is doing the same thing. Emotions are doing the same thing. You think that way all the time. These things will happen. Usually, if they're in person while we're doing that, the very first thing I ever do with them is offer them an oil. While I'm anointing myself, I ask them to anoint themselves. I pull out sacred frankincense because it's the key. Sacred frankincense began international commerce. It began the frankincense trail. It began everything. And so I always start with that, start with the beginning. And I show them, and I want them to take a 1 minute, cup your hands and deep breathe. I diffuse in the room, and anybody who even comes near our house smells the oils before they get in. So I know it's going to impact her brain. But I know, as you said, probiotics and whatever. So when I see dehydration, and I talk with them about how organic their lifestyle is, how not, because whatever your symptoms, whatever the issues, it didn't just happen out of the blue. And it's not this magical attack on us. It is air. It is the work we do. It's the people who work with exterminating, who use toxic matter all day long. It's all kinds of things. It's the artists, the entertainers who use poisons on their skin and latex clothing that's destroying their ability to breathe through the skin. It's accumulative. And I've seen all of it. So one person may have a group of symptoms that somebody labels, a doctor will label that disease. And somebody else will have a different group because that's who they are. It doesn't mean that all of them can't benefit by some fundamental things.
And may I inject this another way that what you're saying is true, which is the exact opposite. And you're saying you may have any number of things going on, and the symptoms or the diagnoses don't actually reflect what's going on. They're just names for late stage events. The other is true too. You may have any number of things going on that produce the same symptom, that produce the same, quote, disease, the arthritis or the autism or the lung cancer or the blindness, the macular degeneration or whatever. Those are final common pathway conditions that come from any number of underlying dysfunctions. So if you are treating the diagnosis or the symptoms, you're going to miss the underlying causes that diverge from what you think is happening, and you're going to miss the underlying causes that can cause that or any number of other things. In other words, Nancy and Dick and Ralph, I'd like your opinion on this. It seems to me that the reductionistic medical model, which says this organ dysfunctions in this way to cause that problem, is not only dead, it rotted a long time ago.
Yes, we have to agree with that one. We are actually individual beings and not guts and intestines and tissues and neurons that are carefully excised from the spinal cord. You know, we're not the results of a vivisection, and I think therefore it's quite true. It's quite true.
So if you're not using the reductionist allopathic model, this organ causes that problem, this problem is caused by that dysfunction. If you're not then looking at just suppressing symptoms, how do you know where to begin and how do you know where to proceed?
I think I go back to the very basics for everybody. I want to know how much water they take, how organic they are, etc. So I was in Spain, and there was a woman at a yoga center. Her husband runs it in Madrid, and beautiful. And she said she has thalassemia, a Mediterranean genetic problem, ever since her second child, I think. And she couldn't, she was out of breath constantly.
Wait, you can't have thalassemia since something. You're born with it.
I know that,
but
it didn't
manifested seriously after her second child.
And this is how she spoke about it.
Okay.
Well, the time she said this, I was in the middle of demonstrating a lot of different things. And I said to her, I don't know if anything.
It's going to change in genetics.
Right. I have no clue.
Yeah, right.
However, I do know that if essential oils can go in and they're so small they can get through to the DNA, all things are possible. And besides that, all things are possible anyhow. And I had on hand a roll-on called Breathe Again. And it's a variety of several, including several eucalyptus, different species, etc., eucalypti. So I said, you know what, why don't you take this and just put it over your lungs. And the best way is go between the ribs and just roll it on. It's got a stainless steel ball. And tomorrow I'll do a raindrop on you. And raindrop for me is how to clean the body. It's kind of a washing, an internal wash, if you will. And it's not magic. It takes a while. And so she said, okay. She came back the next day for the raindrop, and I said, how are you doing? She said, I was able to bike ride for the first time. I went, okay. Just understand that that doesn't mean it's all better. Please. You were getting a little more oxygen. Maybe you felt a little more relief. Maybe you breathed deeper because you felt a little relief. I don't know. I can't see inside everything going on. So we did the raindrop, and that was, I don't know how many years ago, but I've checked in with her quite a few times. She's been fine. She trained, while I was there, I trained her massage therapist to do raindrop for her, and she had it every week. And she went on the functional juice, which has 7 essential oils in it, called Ninja Red. So she went on that, and she did the Breathe Again, and that seemed to do it. So do we actually know? You see, the wording we're so used to, as you said, in medical terminology, is we cure, we have a disease, we treat. I don't think that way at all. I pretty much never really did. I don't believe there's anything that cures anything. I think there's an ongoing system that's alive and has feedback, and sometimes it goes awry with pathogens and other instrumental presences, our thoughts, our feelings. And it's always a matter of adjustment and coming back into balance. And when we are in balance, everything kind of rights itself. So that's my...
Sometimes the diagnosis becomes the disease. Now, it may well have been that she has had her life crippled because she was told she couldn't do this, she couldn't do that. Right?
And that escalated it.
And that, right. And so anytime she had fatigue, or anytime she had shortness of breath, anytime she had that fear, she was fear-laden, she was frozen, right? And just one person saying, just try this, it may help. Once it starts to help, it's a feedback loop. If you start to feel better, you start to feel better. Right?
Yeah, we don't know.
That's why these oils work on an emotional level, not just a spiritual or vibrational, but an emotional level as well.
Okay, this is a kit called Reconnect. We've used it for adults and children. And I want to tell a quick little vignette. When I get new oils and they come out at convention or whatever, they come out, I use everything right away. I have to know what it's doing. I don't even read about it first. I want to just experience it. So we got the Reconnect kit, and there's an oil called Reconnect in it. Now, I knew the history of it. It was about special needs children and how amazing it was. And this was the work done to discover how to help them. So I took the Reconnect, and it said, put a drop on each temple. And I thought, okay, I'll do that. That day, I had a strange experience for me. I had a thread of the emotional history of issues in my family reopen and change completely. Just stages of it occurred where I saw roots that I never understood before. It was amazing. And I realized, oh my God, I was really reconnecting with the roots of the issues, cleansing them and seeing them in a totally different light and feeling them differently. And I went, I'm in love with this oil.
Tell a story about Kathy Farmer's daughter.
Oh,
This is a story that
you really can't do that.
It's a story. It's an N=1 study. Nancy's reluctant because it sounds like it might
Well,
be
you're
making
using her
medical
name,
claims.
and that's not fair to her.
That's true. I didn't say that.
No, I can't really do that. I can tell a different one easily. So be careful. Insomnia is a very, very prominent thing for many. So is snoring. Would you agree?
Yes.
While you may look anatomically and physiologically at what can cause that, I find that the essential oils can not only reduce the insomnia, they can also reduce the snoring to nothing.
Really?
Right. Now, the funny part about that is, for me, it's because they are real intelligence. They know how to go in and help the cells regain normalcy. I don't know how else to say it. I don't have to know anatomy and physiology to use the oils. That's the incredible thing, what Gary had been saying to people. Just let people experience. They don't have to be a doctor. They don't have to be a nurse. They don't have to know physiology. The oils do. And they have, as you said, they have an incredible frequency. So he was the loudest snorer. Like, most people would, walk out and insomnia.
We have no neighbors.
Insomnia. We did a raindrop every week on each other for a year. And what we found one day looking back, nothing. No snoring, peaceful, very different. I watched tremendous changes in hostility, not him, but I mean people who are hostile, animals who are hostile, by just approaching them with the oils on me as a human diffuser. I watched a 10-month-old pony who was almost murdered by 2 grown-up ponies. He was 2 months old when this happened, and they had to remove 2 ribs. And he was in his stall. He was 10 months old. He had never come out of his stall. He wouldn't. He was shaking. He had big non-fur growing back on the whole side. And I used one oil in my palms and walked in with the owner. And within about 3-4 minutes, we put our hands on his side, and he took a deep breath, and he just relaxed. He followed us out. First time he came out of his stall, he said hello to every pony there. He said hello to all the people watching. 2.5 years later, I got a call from Toronto. This was in Virginia. The Toronto person I knew many years is a trainer of these ponies from Virginia. And he said to me, Nan, I just need you to tweak something on this ponies. And he named it, and I went, you have that one? He said, yeah, he just won the national championship. I said, well, wait, are you talking the one without 2 ribs? He said, yeah. They were doing Raindrop every week on him. They were using what I told them, an unbleached coffee filter hung from the stall with about 5 drops of an oil called Peace and Calming, because it switches off the sympathetic nervous system and turns on the parasympathetic. We have seen people who are what people say are psychiatric terms, which is something he was referring to. And we have found that it is probably the gentlest, most effective tool that people can use for themselves besides EFT, emotional field, and all those. But I mean, as a tool to put in their hands, it is amazing. There's an oil called Joy that takes that heavy swing that some people do from one end to the other and brings them into the middle.
Nancy and Dick, can anybody use the wrong oil? Let's say I know nothing about oils. I've got an assortment to hand, and I reach out and I pick up one and I put it in my diffuser, and can I do the wrong thing with it? Or is it like homeopathy, where if I use the wrong homeopathic, it's nothing? If I use the right homeopathic, it's magic.
Okay, I would say 2 answers. One answer is there are cautions. If I'm going to apply to a sensitive place like my lips, I'm not putting cinnamon bark oil. Ooh, it's hot and spicy, or oregano or thyme. That's why I put them in capsules. They're not touching my sensitive skin. That being said, there is no wrong. There are some that are better than others for some circumstances. There's no wrong here. And it doesn't do anything. They always do something.
Because you're diffusing the essential oils, you are really creating a homeopathic, gas, an aura, if you will, almost on a homeopathic level. You can still smell it, so something is there, but it's very, very dilute. And you're talking almost in the realm of nanodilutions. Dr. Rima, can you address the issue of the relationship between that olfactory sense of ours and the emotional centers of the brain?
Yes, I can. We have a number of cranial nerves. That means nerves that are part of the actual brain. Some of those nerves actually leave the brain and travel into the body. One of them, or the only one that actually travels, is the vagus nerve. It comes out of the brain and it goes down the neck, and it has an impact on and receives information from all of the organs: the stomach, the esophagus, the diaphragm, the intestines, the heart, and so on. So they're all wired directly to the brain. And of course, the sympathetic nervous system has an excitatory impact, and the parasympathetic nervous system has a calming impact. But the information goes the other way too, from the organs to the brain and back again. Well, there's another nerve that comes directly out of the brain and is in fact the most connected to the outside world of any part of our inside world, and that's the olfactory nerve. The olfactory nerve is rather short. Yep. It's a bulb that comes out of the front of our brain and sits at the top, or reaches the top of our nose. So when you breathe that essential oil in, or when you breathe a noxious fume from the fire retardant that is on your clothing or your sheet, or when you breathe the fragrance of rosemary from the roast that's cooking, the lamb roast that's cooking, let's say, those molecules, which is how you determine that something has an odor, you perceive the molecules with your olfactory nerve. Those molecules trigger something in the part of the brain that's actually sticking out of the skull, the olfactory nerve, and it has a bulb so there's a lot of tissue there to receive the molecules. And then, this is the interesting part, the information from those molecules, or maybe the molecules themselves in the case of essential oils, goes deep into the brain, and it goes to something deep in the brain called the limbic system. It's a very ancient structure, and it's a very well-protected structure. The limbic system, you would find, if you put your hands like this, you'll see that there's a plane going through. That's about where the limbic system is. The limbic system is a ring, a limbus, and it connects directly to the most vital parts of our being, physically and emotionally. Because at the end of the limbic system, there are two almond-sized bits called the amygdala, and that's kind of the terminus. And so the sense of the olfactory nerve picks up the molecules and the information that the molecules carry, and that's a lot. And that information goes directly to the amygdala. Now, what does the amygdala do? It does a lot of things, but one thing it does is it's the library of your emotional life. Every single emotion that you've ever had, every single connection or lack of connection, every single trauma or gratification and meaning that you've ever had is encoded in your amygdala, which is a direct connection to your olfactory bulb. So it goes from the top of your nose into the core of your being. So when you smell that essential oil, what you're taking in is information, meaning, and a key that opens the door to everything that you are and everything that you have been through consciousness, through emotion, and through physiology. Other than that, they're not important.
Interesting, Dr. Rima. And of course, compare that to the other two great senses that come directly out of the brain or go into the brain, namely eyesight and hearing. And you realize that those two senses are dealing with energy, while the olfactory taste sense is dealing with actual molecules of stuff, although nanodilutions of that stuff. So I think it's really fascinating.
I would have to disagree with you.
Go ahead.
I would have to disagree with you. I do not believe that the molecules that are bouncing off the neurons in your olfactory system are just interacting with the neurons at the Newtonian mechanical physical level. I believe that they're also delivering vibratory frequency information. What do I mean by that? Every molecule carries information. Every molecule vibrates. Every organ vibrates. Every atom vibrates. Everything vibrates. And in fact, you might say everything is vibration if you were not Bill Clinton struggling to understand the meaning of the word is. But for the rest of us, everything we now know quite trivially almost is vibration. So when a molecule of anything bounces into the neurons of the olfactory bulb, it's delivering itself for a lock and key recognition, but it's also delivering its information. It's delivering its frequency. Now, I have delivered, using sound to capture the frequency, I have delivered chemotherapy to people for whom the physical chemotherapy agent would kill them because of their previous reactions to it. For instance, 5-fluorouracil, but I gave the frequency of 5-fluorouracil, and the cancer reacted as if it had received the molecule. The toxicity is in the molecule, not in the frequency. So the eyes deal with energy, the ears deal with energy, the olfactory system deals with energy. The real perception and the real transmission of information is energetic, because think about it. How fast can information get from one part of the body to another? It actually travels faster than the speed of light because of the piezoelectric liquid crystal that is the matrix in which each cell is embedded. And I believe that the molecules are triggering and delivering energy information at the olfactory bulb.
Mhm.
What do you guys think about that?
I love it. I love how you say it.
It's absolutely true, and
Yeah.
it is. What's interesting about the oils, sometimes you'll have these memories locked away in the amygdala, right? And the only thing that triggers it is something from familiarity, something from the past, right? When Gary put together Gary Young again, Peace and Calming, right? He went back to the things that he loved as a child, tangerine and orange, right? Because he said that he
Two key ingredients.
two key ingredients. He felt that brought him back to his childhood, right? I think it brings many people back to their childhood. That's one of the reasons that when he blends something, he does it in a very personal way, because it has meaning for him, and he feels from the specific to the general.
Oh, I have to ask you. And if you can't answer it, then I want to ask Gary directly.
Yes.
Let us say that there is somebody who has grown up in an environment where they have never encountered a tangerine, nor have they encountered an orange. None of those information pieces are encoded in them. Okay? No orange, no tangerine, no Christmas at grandma's with the pomander with cloves stuck in the oranges. None of that. Okay? Now, we take Peace and Calming and we give it, let's say it's an autistic person who has been, vaccine injured, as if vaccines could cause autism. That's right, they can. They do. So moving right along. So we give this agitated person who has never encountered either a tangerine or an orange the Peace and Calming oil experience. Is the result going to be the same for them as it would be for somebody who had tangerines, oranges, and childhood memories of positive sort?
My feeling is that why do CBDs work? We know we have receptors. I think
Yes.
we may well have
Universal ones.
universal receptors that are triggered by those molecules.
Precisely.
So when I look at that also, I never discount memory from
Remnant memory from before.
remnant memory, primordial memory, locked into everybody, special memory. So, and we know from blood types, I'm B+, you're all mountains. Really? How interesting. That's where B positive came from. So I may have within me that information.
That's why she likes the smell of yak urine.
There are no yaks in the Ural Mountains, Dick. Try again.
Oh, come on. You're so far off. The oils are from around the planet. So we have from Taiwan, and we have from other parts of Asia, and we have from the Middle East in Oman, and we have from America and Latin America, and just all over. The interesting thing is the compounds, if we get into the practical level of them, the compounds are the compounds. So you can have sesquiterpenes as part of the makeup of an essential oil in Taiwan, and you can have sesquiterpenes in
South
Utah
America, sure.
or South America or Mideast.
Are you suggesting the same sesquiterpene or different ones?
No, but
No.
but a receptor that responds
Well,
to
yeah, like
analogs.
beta-caryophyllene
Yeah.
is high in Brazil in Copaíba. It's the
Yes.
highest. Beta-caryophyllene is the highest percentage ever found in anything in this product called Copaíba, which is tapped from a tree, for the copal tree in Brazil, in a particular part of Brazil for the highest good. Well, beta-caryophyllene as far as anybody knows in laboratories, is exactly the same beta-caryophyllene found in something that grows in Croatia. I don't know. Yeah. So I'm looking, helichrysum grows in Croatia.
And they have
It grows in the Balkans.
very, very
But it's
high
higher in
anti-inflammatory
Copaiba
than in anything else.
than in helichrysum. But when you put the two of them together, helichrysum, according to lab studies, works 8 times better than it did.
Because
It's potentiated by that heightened beta-caryophyllene coming in from Copaiba. So, but they both have it, and it's the same compound, just different percentiles.
But we know that herbs and foods and many of the natural inputs that we have work not just in terms of their own single compounds, but for instance, the herbal complex around a particular ingredient will change the way that compound works. So it's not just vitamin C in kiwi fruit and vitamin C in apples and vitamins. It's the entire complex. And I suspect that even though distillation is focused on a particular compound or group of compounds in an oil, I suspect that there's quite a complex matrix. Looking at the way essential oils, for example, are made in the Ayurvedic tradition, they do everything they can to complex the principal ingredient. And I suspect that that's what we're dealing with. And my guess is that the answer to the question that I asked, what about what about somebody with no happy childhood memory? Somebody who was a beggar on the street being abused, right? And they smelled tangerine peels in the garbage that they were forced to crawl through. Not so happy. And yet, I agree with you. There would be there would be universal receptor response as there is to CBD, whether you had a happy childhood or not.
Well, it's the same thing as the difference between a grade of essential oil that resonates both from earth to spirit and from spirit to earth, totally resonates and helps us remember we're connected.
Now let's talk about a grade of essential oil and what that means. And what that means if you go, let's say, to nsfoils.com and you get yourself some rose oil, or if you wander down to the local discount market and you get yourself some rose oil. After all, rose oil, what's the difference?
Would you like to take on?
The difference is that, number one, the rose oil you may find at Whole Foods or Windermere is going to be almost invariably diluted with synthetics because of the cost of rose oil. It's going to be riddled with analogs that smell like rose oil.
Cost of distilling, period,
Yeah.
anything.
See,
Right.
Gary's specialty is slow, low pressure hydro distillation, which does bring a full
Wait, I couldn't hear you. Gary's specialty is low pressure.
hydro distillation.
Low temperature, slow distillation.
To bring the full bouquet bring all the components into the oil. So you could get, if you wanted to diffuse lavender, you could do it in 15 minutes and get the olfactory sensation of lavender, but the therapeutic value of lavender wouldn't be there because you're just blowing off the early stuff. Yeah.
The average lavender sold in most markets is steam distilled in 2.5 hours. The minimum we do ours is 24 hours. And we know exactly what flash point before it starts breaking down inappropriately. It's tested all along. And everything is glass and stainless steel. No hands touch it, ever. So once it goes in, it's always that way. And that's, so the grading occurs out of a French lab originally, and Dr. Hervé Casabianca is both the head of the European Commission on essential oil grades, and he also runs a French lab that was created many years ago. He's the head chemist. And what he did was, I don't know, he did it alone, I doubt it, but they defined different grades. Perfume grade is like grade C or grade D, I don't know. We have a grade B, which is the average cheap oil. And then you have grade A, which is supposed to be what France used to start medical aromatherapy. It was amongst doctors only and by prescription. In some places, it's still only by prescription. And Germany, British model was very diluted, very synthetic after a while. So very different. It was more like a grade B or perfume grade, still is. So Gary comes along, and because he understands soil and how to bring the soil up to its best levels and healthiest, and how to use essential oils to help support the plants, besides extracting it, then using it again for the plants, Hervé Casabianca is now his partner in many things because we have above grade A. And Hervé and Gary call it therapeutic grade essential oils. Now, that's not a term that's certifiable or anything else. That was Gary's term for something that was either grade A or better. And it turns out we have oils that exceed all standards.
The standards are based upon what you expect to find as the constituents. Right? But there are so many things that are lost if you distill quickly. Right? So you may get the major constituents, but you go with the subtle, smaller fractions that really make them therapeutic. They may offer no olfactory, so conscious olfactory stimulus, because it'll still smell like lavender, right? But it's going to go in to your olfactory bulb, it's going to go into your amygdala, it's going to trigger things that are in there and cascade into a positive health situation, and it's got nothing to do with the smell. It's got to do with the molecules that carry the information. It's not all smell. It's like not all sound we can hear.
Right.
Because we have limited
and
receptive sites.
Fragrance is more about our emotional receptors.
Yeah.
While the other components are valuable. So it's a different world. You can grow helichrysum, anybody can, but you may not get it ever at that level. And it turns out he's tried it in pretty much many places, and the Balkans are the only place you can grow it and get that level.
So the helichrysum that he accepts only comes from the Balkan states. He tried it in Italy, he tried it in Sicily, right? There was always something missing.
So now he has a farm in Croatia, in Split, Croatia.
What limitations do you see either in your use of the essential oils or in the use of essential oils by people that are using these same good oils, the Young Living oils that have the superb quality? What keeps things from going optimally, or what do people need to be cautious about?
Absolutely. Good question. If they're not hydrated, don't use oils.
So first, it's the the condition of the body that's receiving them is important.
Must have enough aqua, water, and good water, because oils do work very quickly. They do cleanse, and you have to be able to flush it out, not back up any system.
So you might
like Max Gershon said.
You might take oils and they're therapeutic and they're helpful for you, except they're going to detoxify you too quickly, right? You can
have a Herxheimer reaction, or you can have an uncomfortable time because of too rapid detoxing.
Yes.
Too much, too rapidly.
Too much, too soon.
If you're not used to an organic lifestyle and good, healthy water and enough of it every day, then I wouldn't use a lot of it right away unless you really need to. And then
That's what I was going to say. It sounds like the caution is not then don't use it. The caution is use it slowly, introduce slowly. And my guess is that people will start getting thirsty as their body needs the water. They will say, I don't know why, but I just really can't get enough water. No, thank you. I don't want Gatorade. I'll take water.
Oh, yeah. Ooh, just the word gets me. Ooh.
Right. Good point, Dr. Rima. And folks, we have just 15 minutes remaining on this episode of Dr. Rima Truth Reports. And I was wondering, one of the essential oils that we've mentioned in the program has been frankincense, and it might be interesting to hear a little more about that. I know Dick has been on the frankincense trail. And the other essential oil that we mentioned earlier and didn't talk much about at all is one that Dr. Rima is very interested in, namely CBDs. So I don't know where you want to start or go from, but we have about 15 minutes. And remember, www.nsfoils.com for more information.
I want before we do this last bit, I want you to know Nancy's going to be leaving us at a little bit before 8 because she
Like
has
2 minutes before.
because she has a conference call she has to appear on. So I'll fill.
Well, it's clear that you don't love us, Nancy. We understand that. It's all over.
I'm starting to cry right now. I'll miss you so.
Quick, give her an essential oil for her out of control emotions.
Get those frequencies high. Oh.
Before we talk about frankincense and before we talk about CBD, two topics I love dearly, let's talk about frequencies high. We hear that this oil has that many megahertz and this oil has that many megahertz. Could you explain to people, A, whether that means anything at all, and B, what it means, in case it does?
My engineer, my physicist.
Mr. Engineer Physicist, please.
Yes.
Go
Okay.
for it.
So if you there's certain substances will resonate, just like rice work will resonate to a driving function, right? So you keep sweeping the frequency up, and at some time you'll see where you're getting all kinds of excitation because you're coupling in to the molecule.
Talk like people don't know a thing. What is a frequency?
A frequency is the amount of.
I love it. He can't do it.
This is frequency.
There you go. Frequency is the energy that is expressed in repeated motion at a certain rhythm.
Okay, right. And then the actual energy is the frequency and the wavelength, right? So the two together form the frequency of an oil is characterized by sweeping it with a signal generator until you see this incredible oscillation, right? But what's interesting.
So when somebody says rose oil has 348
328
megahertz, yeah.
328 megahertz, they're saying
Idaho blue spruce has 528. Isn't that a magic number?
okay, that is a Horowitzian magic number, yes. So when somebody says that this oil has this frequency, what they mean is that somebody in a laboratory actually excited the molecules in a resonant response at that particular frequency. Is that true? I'm so glad you told us that, sir.
That's true. You said it even better than I could have myself. Now, but what's
I love you.
That frequency that is in the oil can be imparted to the body that's receiving the oil. So even though you're not shaking it 328 or 528, right? The potential for resonance that goes into your body lifts your whole baseline frequency, your whole baseline above sickness and into wellness.
Well, let's say I'm feeling exhausted, just tired.
Okay.
And I'll pick up something like basil oil.
Yes.
And I'll think, my mind's just so fatigued. I did so much. And basil oil will immediately restore and let go of the mental fatigue for me. So that frequency is a match at that point for what I need. But what if it didn't do that for me the next time? See, with essential oils, we know it may be doing something because they have different functions, multiple functions. It just didn't do that. So I use it. I still use it figuring it's doing something good. And I'll go to another oil like peppermint. And within minutes, I will feel different. Yeah. There's an oil called NRG. And one of my friends was so tired for days. And she said she used NRG and one other, I can't remember. She said, I was go, go, go the rest of the day. I couldn't stop. Fitness, it's another oil. She used fitness and energy. She said, I was more active than I've been in probably years.
Do you muscle test for oils? Do you teach people to muscle test themselves?
I don't. I worked with a diplomat in applied kinesiology many decades. And I knew George.
We're getting competing sound.
So I used to do a lot of that. I just don't anymore. I just use and show people how to use it and play. But yeah, sure.
The answer
experimenting is important.
Can you do it? Certainly. You get a strong response? Certainly. Is it necessary in an educational sense? If you want to make something transferable, certainly. Nancy doesn't test the oils.
I don't bother. I trust the oils to talk to me. So when I'm with anyone who has any need or I hear of them, I get very quiet and I just wait for it to come through. And that's what I share with them.
By my observation, Nancy uses a visceral kinesiology. She uses her own body reaction to know whether or not it's going to be something that will resonate. Right? It's not a level.
Nancy is a highly, highly accomplished healer, responder, knower. She's a very well-developed person. What about somebody who doesn't, and not only that, she's my friend. What about somebody who doesn't have the confidence or the knowingness or the experience, and now they've got oils and they've got, they know that they want to use them. Now what?
Okay. We have a community, let me just share, about 6,000 people that we work with right now. And one of the things I know is we don't know a lot of them. However, we get to know them through social media, through phone calls, etc. And a lot of them just take it and run with it because they've never felt that good just being exposed to it. So for me, a lot of it still comes down to experiential. Even when we test, and some people will get into that, wellness centers love doing that. And for me, I really want the person who knows nothing about anything to explore something that is safe and effective and easy for them to put in their pocket and take it with them. So if they have long journeys and they're tired and they're hot and they're bothered, and I tell them put peppermint oil on, just don't rub your eyes unless you wash your hands afterwards. I keep it so simple to start with for a lot of people that I want them to first gain experience. There's nothing like experience. You can intellectually tell people all you want, and most people will go, that sounds good, and that's all.
There is a short circuit. There are several galvanic response machines. There's one called the Zyto Compass.
Yeah.
That people use to assess their own needs. Right. So you have an intermediate. You have a technology. Put your hand on it. It says you're deficient in this. This oil is a remedy. Right. Now I don't know if that's wise or unwise because it takes the self-empowerment away. Right. My personal feeling, and I think Nancy's as well, is it's the individualized experience that teaches you.
It's the neighbor who uses it and has just put it on their baby to sleep or diffused in their room, who goes to their neighbor and so it's, for me, it's bringing back tribal and community more than anything.
So somebody starts out in oils and they buy a few, or they buy a kit, or they buy the 9 essential first step oils. And they say, I have a doubt, I don't know what to do. What would they do? Where would they reach?
They would start, first of all, we always tell them, feel free to contact us. And one of our team leaders, Cristina Martinez, speaks English, Spanish, and French. So
And is well versed and knowledgeable.
we want to get a feel for them because not everybody wants to start with the same things. Not everybody needs to. Some people don't have the time. So sometimes we tell them, our real essential oils are better used in shampoos and soaps because it's safe. So when you wash your body, and that's what I did with a friend many years ago with her special needs son, and said, you wash his hair in warm water and you're putting poisons going right in to the brain. Please. And she got it. She immediately converted her whole home, threw out everything, brought in all the Young Living personal care products, and it transformed everything. And that was the beginning of her road. Now, somebody else, the premium starter kits of essential oils are perfect for them. They like to experiment with oils. They want to diffuse. It comes with a diffuser. They play with it. It comes with a booklet on how to use. It comes with our information. We send them more information. We put them in our club if they like social media. We have translators for pretty much many languages, Polish, Turkish, whatever. And we go from there. But I have to stop because I have to go. So can I say first, I love you all. I love you so much. It's so great to be with you. Oh my God. More. I want
more.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This has been a lovely 2 minutes short of 2 hours.
I'll leave you with Yoda.
Yeah, Yoda will take over. There is many times a fear component. There are people that buy oils and never use them because they're afraid that they don't have the esoteric knowledge. What we try to do is dispel and displace that fear with, yes, what's that? My glasses?
I took his by mistake. You can't see a thing.
So it's a good question. I don't have an answer for it. I think that's why we hope people rely on us, rely on you, rely on people who are more knowledgeable and more experienced and are free to and have the time because it benefits us to benefit them. But and there will be people that do have adverse reactions, people who are overly toxic, right? If they have.
Let's talk about that. What can a toxic reaction, a detox reaction, which is not toxic because of the oil, but toxic discharge?
Because the oils are the oils are drawing out of the skin these things that have been in there, been sequestered in your subdural or dural layer, in your fat, right? And they come out and they're irritating because they come out in a really concentrated way. And people say, look, I've got this terrible rash. Now, the rash wasn't really caused by the oil, but the oil did precipitate the rash. And so you back off and you say, well, we know there's going to be time, right? It's a process. You do it a little bit at a time, and eventually we had a woman who was on Broadway, and she started the oils and she had terrible skin reactions, right? And she backed off, and she started using a better brand of makeup and a better brand of soap, and she used pure water. And over the course of time, she's become enamored of the oils to such an extent that she's now gone out and she teaches people who are in her field, people who are entertainers.
I have to tell you a little story that supports that notion, Dick. I had a patient who had a fulminating, extremely aggressive breast cancer. And she was being called several times a week by the surgeons who wanted to remove her breast and other parts of her. And she said, no, I have been instructed by my energy beings that Dr. Lebo is going to cure my cancer. And I thought to myself, oh my God, it would be really good if she didn't say that in writing to anybody. But Anyway, she came to see me, and I was not using essential oils at the time. I was using an energy equivalent with a device that was. Hello, Ralph. Ralph, we have still that extra sound, extra conversation. So I was treating her with the frequency of ozone. I was not giving her ozone, and she began through the area directly. Ralph,
Yes, Dr. Rima, we have reached the end of the Dr. Rima Truth Reports. That you want to finish up what you're saying, I turned on my microphone for that purpose.
okay.
Lead us out. Lead us out.
Okay, so she began putting out a purple goo directly through the skin over the primary lesion, and I had never seen a body release purple gummy goo. I said, being very smart, do you have any idea what that is? And she said, yes, I do. This woman was a hairdresser. And she used this purple goo as a fixative for certain kinds of hair treatments. And it had become fixed in her body and was causing cancer. And when we detoxed her through the frequency, and we could have done it through essential oils, her body literally pushed it out through the most toxic part of her body, which was the malignancy. She was, by the way, cured completely.
It's a brilliant story. Thank you very much for your insight and your abilities. That's marvelous. Now, you know, there are going to be a lot of people saying, I want the blue goo out of my body.
Well, they should get the goo out of their body. You know, environmental medicine is not just some sort of backwater nonsense. It's us.
Yes.
We are it. It are us. We are polluted. Our genes are polluted. Our energy is polluted. Our food is polluted. Our air is polluted. We are being destroyed genetically, genomically, through the environmental contamination that we have permitted corporate persons and military persons to impose upon us. And then we buy it. And then we
make it worse by adding vaccines to it. And this, folks, is the end of this episode of the Dr. Rima Truth Reports. Remember, you can find out more at drrimatruthreports.com. Thank you.
And at nsfoils.com. Thank you, Dick, and thank Nancy, who has now left. And thank Ralph. Thank you.
All right.
Have a great night.